This came from Duclos lenses. Let's go ahead and open it up. Wow. Shout out to Duclos lenses. This is really premium stuff. Here, we're going to let you guys hear that. Even closer. I'm very reassured that this product came here safely, especially because of the fact that it's surrounded by these little foam pellets. I really, really appreciate that from Duclos lenses. Oh, it's got some weight to it. Yeah, it's definitely got some weight to it. Check it out, guys. This is how it comes. There's a little QR code in the back. Cine filter, Scheider. Let's open it up. This carrying case, it says Hollywood Black Magic 1. Let's take our first look. Okay. I'm just gonna put it through the light. I wanna see it. Factory, how it comes from it. So right off the bat, I want to try and illustrate this as good as possible, so I'll go ahead and insert some shots. It almost looks like somebody was washing this or tried to clean it with like Windex or something. I don't know how else to explain it. Or like it's been cleaned with a cloth that left some water residue that just dried and it left some stains. But we're going to clean this to the best of our ability. I have here always a microfiber cloth. Comes in very, very handy. You always want to have that in arm's reach. At least I do. Oh, that's very reassuring. Okay. So I'm cleaning it right now, just slightly, and I can already tell that comes off. The glass itself feels very dense. I love it. Really feels expensive for its value. And I mean, let's be honest, this is not necessarily $100 or $200 coming out of your bank account. This was a pretty penny for a piece of glass this thick. So you guys can see, just to give you a comparison to my nail. We're obviously not going to be able to hold this with our hands. This is going to need a bracket of sorts to be able to be inserted into a matte box. Luckily, I went ahead and purchased the SmallRig matte box, and that ended up coming with an extra little bracket, which is a VND filter holder that just so happens to be the perfect size for this filter, as you guys can see. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this filter in here because we're gonna need a way to mount this onto the camera, and this goes into the matte box that goes onto the lens that's on the camera. So we're gonna go ahead and use this piece to our benefit. So I think I got it pretty clean, and then I just drop it in because I see a latch. Yep, okay. So just to explain to you guys, this right here is a latch, so it unlocks like that. You slide it in, it has two placeholders that stop it from sliding out, and this just locks back into place when it's done, and then it gets secured. Alright, so now I'm going to take another picture for you guys to be able to see what it looks like after you cleaned it. So it looks a little frosted actually. So what I can tell is, looks like it has some frosted speckles to it. Right off the bat, I can tell you this feels very, very worth the money. Like if you were to hand this to somebody and you received this, you'd be very surprised at the weight that this glass holds. It makes a statement. I don't know how else to explain it, but it makes a statement, and I think that that's very important when you're dealing with professional grade equipment, because you want to feel very confident in the equipment that you're buying. You know, you're spending over $200, $300 for a piece of glass that's essentially going to go in front of another piece of glass.
This is the 11 to 20 millimeter Tokina ATX cinema lens That is a wide angle lens, and it's currently at 17 millimeters. So at the moment there is no Hollywood Blackmagic filter and there is no variable ND. Let's go ahead and see what these comparisons look like. So this is the Nisi VND filter, 1 to 5 stops. We're going to bring it down a couple stops. This is an 86 millimeter filter, by the way, for anybody interested, because this Tokina 11 to 20 millimeter lens is a 86 millimeter thread. So this is at the lowest, meaning this is 5 stops down. This is what the image looks like without the hood flap on top. And now this is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens. There is no variable ND filter here. I have not been able to add another filter like I thought I was going to be able to add using the SmallRig matte box. I might have to check online to see if they have some sort of stacking option. And since I went ahead and showed you the Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic Strength #1 filter, I will also show you the variable ND filter that came with this matte box originally when I purchased it from SmallRig themselves. Go ahead and take this, slide it into place, take that, letting it latch in, and now we're locked in. So we're going to go ahead and install this filter again. You should automatically start seeing a very big difference. And this is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with the SmallRig variable ND matte box.
So I'm in post-production and I'm looking over the video footage, which has already been edited, put in sequence, and color graded, and I still felt like it was overexposed. Not only that, but I then started to get curious. I really want to use these filters in conjunction. I figured, you know, it's not going to be the same as far as 5 stops equally from Schneider's filter and SmallRig's filter to make it a solid comparison, because of the fact that I'm looking for something that can still compensate a little more exposure, because I felt like it was overexposed. The links for any of the products that I will be using and or reviewing in these videos that I make will always be found in the description below. So I went on SmallRig's website and I went ahead and purchased the trays that I would be able to stack and use in conjunction for these filters to be able to be stacked. So once I did that, I went to Duclos Lenses webpage and I purchased a Schneider ND filter, not just any ND filter, however, their Rhodium ND filter, and that is the 2.4 version, which I have here today. So this is what we're going to be looking at today. Enjoy this unboxing of this filter as well. And of course, we're going to be doing examples outdoors for you to see the comparison. Now that I'll be able to stack it and get a little bit more complex of an image, I'll go ahead and retake all of the previous examples that I've had. This way we can have a better representation of what everything looks like in a much more sequential order. So now we're going to go ahead and enjoy this video of me unboxing this. Once again, we have the premium grade pellets. Check it out, guys. It's It's got the QR codes. That right there is the Rhodium 2.4 ND filter by Scheider. Yes. That is dark. I've got to say that is dark and dense as the previous glass, and you could really see how dark that is. I'm gonna go ahead and put that right in front without touching the lens, just so you guys can see. Maybe angle it a certain way just in case you guys aren't able to tell, but wow. Can't wait to get this mounted and for you guys to see. Alright, let's get the tray. Initiate by putting it here. We are fastened in place. Ain't that something? And there we have it, folks. Hollywood Black Magic. So here we have the Hollywood Black Magic, and here we have the Rhodium ND filter 2.4. And this will be mounted onto the lenses, and I will go and show you guys one by one what this looks like.
The current lens I'm using is the Tokina Cinema ATX 11 to 20 millimeters with no filter on it at an f-stop of 22. I'm going to go ahead and throw on the filter, and I'm going to raise the f-stop to an f-stop of 8. When I mount the matte box to any of these lenses, I will lose the capability of having autofocus with the PD Movie Motor Smart Mini LiDAR 3 because the LiDAR sensor gets blocked with the matte box, in case this video starts to get a little out of focus or the quality drops as far as keeping myself in focus for the video. So I do apologize in advance, but I will try to get everything in focus for the best comparison possible. I will be keeping all of this in mind when I take into consideration my final decision as to which one of these is the best product to use for your productions for the highest quality and the most efficient use. So to start, we have the Tokina Cinema ATX 11 to 20 millimeter at a 17 millimeter focal length with no filter on. It's currently at an f-stop of 22, and I'll be raising the f-stop to an 8 for all the lenses that I use, to then use that as a starting point for all of these filters, and for us to have a reference point for all of these filters to see where we can go ahead and compensate from there, whether it's in post-production or it's in camera right here on the lens fixing the aperture. So let's go ahead and do that now. Just changed it to f8. Okay, so this looks to be the strongest, and this is the weakest. This is the Nisi variable ND filter 1 to 5 stops. This is at the weakest point. I just did a partial turn, not sure exactly how many stops that is, but the sun did go away just now, so there will be some compensation that is made in my environment that will of course get affected by the filter. I'm going ahead and rotating it now. So this is now rotated at about 40% of the way. This is again the Nisi variable ND filter 1 to 5 stops. And now we're going to turn it all the way. And I'll go ahead and check my corners in post-production to see if there's any discoloration or any tint going into my image, or just simply vignetting. This is the Nisi variable ND filter at 5 stops down, which is the strongest the filter can go, at an f-stop of 8 on my Tokina ATX 11 to 20 millimeter lens at a focal length of 17 millimeters. So it's also occurred to me to go ahead and use this filter to show you guys where I think the sweet spot using this filter at an f-stop of 8 is, and I'll go ahead and do that now. So right there, almost at the full 5 stops, but I did pull it back a little bit before reaching the final 5 stops. So the next filter I will be doing for the Tokina Cinema ATX 11-20mm lens will be this variable ND filter, which is also 5 stops by SmallRig, which came with this matte box that I'm going to go ahead and mount, which is the Revo Arcane or Arcana. I apologize if I'm butchering it. So we're going to go ahead and put this variable ND filter, which equates to 5 stops in compensation of light, and compare it to the Nisi variable filter, which is also 5 stops. That's peculiar. Alright, so this is the SmallRig variable ND filter, which is 1 to 5 stops at the weakest point. I'm going to go ahead and gradually increase it now. This is the variable ND filter on the Tokina Cinema ATX 11-20mm at a 17mm focal length with 1 stop down. I'm going to go ahead and lower to what I presume is the next stop, which is represented by some dots here on this variable ND filter by SmallRig. So this is definitely an upside already from what I can tell you. With the Nisi, you don't have any representation as to how many stops you're going down or at what stop you're at. It's simply you turn and look at what the image does and see where it lies good. This one, you have dots that you can tell is representing for the stops because there's 5 of these dots. This is at 3 stops down, which is the variable ND filter by SmallRig. And this is the variable ND filter by SmallRig, which is 1 to 5 stops at the strongest strength, which is 5 stops. So I'm going to go ahead and take a moment here to compare the variable ND filter from SmallRig and the variable ND filter by Nisi. They are both 5 stops and the only 2 filters that I have currently on me with 5 stops in reduction. Just as a reminder, I am on an f-stop of 8, and I will go ahead and change this variable ND to where I think behind the camera it looks good, just as I did with the Nisi, so that I can go ahead and compare in post. So just like the previous filter, I will be going into post-production and checking out all the edges of my footage just to make sure there is no discoloration or any tinting of any sorts. And I'm going to go ahead behind the camera and change this variable ND filter to where I think the image looks good, so that I can compare it to where the image was looking good on the Nisi variable ND filter. So at an f-stop of 8, this is where I think the SmallRig ND filter is looking very good. It looks like it's close to the 5 stops of reduction, but it's not exactly 100% all the way. I pulled it back just a little bit from where it was at 5 stops of reduction. So this is the SmallRig ND filter. Let me know what you guys are thinking down below in the comments so far, if you prefer the Nisi variable ND filter or the SmallRig variable ND filter. So this next filter, without changing the f-stop, still at an f-stop of 8, and on the Tokina ATX 11-20mm lens at a focal length of 17mm, I'm using the Scheider ND filter of 2.4 strength or 7 stops. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, I will have to take a look behind the monitor and really see what's going on, but just as a comparison, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys see what this is looking like. Now I am using the Tokina Cinema ATX 11-20mm lens at a focal length of 17mm with the Scheider ND filter at a strength of 2.4 or 7 stops. Since I cannot increase or decrease the strength of this filter, I'm going to go ahead and play with my exposure to see at what stop of light I like it best. This is what my image looks like now at an f5 on the Tokina ATX 11-20mm on a focal length of 17mm using the Scheider FSND 2.4 or 7 stops. And just for curiosity purposes, I'm also going to go ahead and leave this filter on my Tokina ATX 11-20mm lens, but open the aperture all the way. And this is the Tokina ATX 11-20mm at a focal length of 17mm at an f-stop of 2.9. And here I have the Hollywood Blackmagic stacked with the Scheider FSND 2.4. This is how the image looks like with my lens on an aperture of 5 and my filters stacked. And I will also be showing you guys what the dramatic f-stop 22 looks like with this lens filter on top of my lens. And here we have my lens at an f-stop of 22 with the Scheider FSND 2.4 and the Hollywood Blackmagic strength number 1 stacked on top of each other. Okay. This is what my image looks like with my matte box front flap raised all the way and my side flap on the right side, my right side, which is in this case the left side of my matte box, all the way open. We're going to drop it back to an f-stop of 8, and just for comparison purposes, we're going to take out this ND and we're going to put the variable ND. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take the variable ND filter and pair it with my Hollywood Blackmagic at a strength of 1. So this is the Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic at a strength of 1 with the variable ND filter by SmallRig at the strongest strength of the variable ND being 5. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what this footage looks like after I go ahead and adjust my variable ND to where I feel the exposure is okay. I don't think the exposure changed much, to be honest, but just for references, we're going to go ahead and take a look at me walking back and forth. I can't really see what my focus looks like, so I'm just trying to pull my focus and hope that I land somewhere around there. This looks great. Honestly, the image that I'm looking at from my SmallRig variable ND filter does not look terrible compared to my FSND filter image as well. It looks very, very good, honestly. I kind of feel like if it wasn't for the fact that the glass is probably more premium, I would probably go with the actual SmallRig variable ND filter just because of the fact that I'm able to modify the strength. But quite honestly, I would probably end up around the strongest strength anyway, so that's why I prefer to go a little overboard with the filtration and then compensate for that with my exposure and my aperture on my lens. So just to sum it up, this is my Tokina Cinema ATX 11-20mm lens paired with my Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic filter and my SmallRig variable ND filter at a strength of 5 on the variable ND filter and a strength of 1 on the Hollywood Blackmagic filter, while my lens is at an aperture of f8. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next lens. This next lens is going to be the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with no lens filters on it at an f-stop of f22. I'm going to go ahead and change the f-stop to an f8 and then slowly start to swap out these filters and compare them so that we can go ahead and see what these images look like. This is at an f22, no filters, Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with the SmallRig variable ND filter at the weakest strength. I'm now going to go ahead and let you see what it looks like at half strength. This is half strength. This is full strength. And this is where I think the image looks good. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the strongest strength that the filter can go, but it's close to it. I'm now going to stack the second filter on top of this variable ND filter by SmallRig, which is the Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic filter with a strength of 1. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with the SmallRig variable ND filter, not necessarily all the way, but just slightly pulled back from the strength of 5, so I would say 4.5 stops down, and the Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic filter at a strength of 1 stacked on top of that filter at an f-stop of 8. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with no filters on it at an f-stop of f22, and I am now going to show you what it looks like in comparison with adding just the Hollywood Blackmagic strength number 1 filter onto it. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm with no filters on it at an f-stop of f22. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens at an f-stop of f22 with the Hollywood Blackmagic at a strength of 1. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm with the Scheider Hollywood Blackmagic with a strength of 1 at an f-stop of f8. And now just to show you what that looks like at an f-stop of f22. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens with no filters on it at an f-stop of f8. I'm now going to go ahead and add the Rhodium FSND Rhodium 2.4 filter. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens at an f-stop of f8 with the Scheider Rhodium FSND at strength of 2.4 or 7 stops. I'm now going to go ahead and take my aperture and open it up to a point where I think that it looks good with this filter. This is the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm lens at an f-stop of f2.8 with the Scheider FSND of 2.4 on it.
So here's my final thoughts. My favorite and my top pick is going to be the Scheider Rhodium FSND at a strength of 2.4. The image is very clean and it's very even all the way through, meaning the top isn't darker than the bottom and the bottom isn't darker than the sides. I love the fact that it had no tinting on it because I noticed on the others that there was some tinting. For example, on the VND by SmallRig, 1 to 5 stops, there was magenta almost in the clouds. I can notice it when I was using it, especially on my wide angle lens. And with the Nisi, I could definitely notice there was a huge green tint on my whole image.
it was just something that I didn't like. The next best option would be the SmallRig VND, and that's because I love the fact that you can tell what stop you're on as opposed to the Nisi that doesn't show you anything. You're just playing the guessing game with Nisi. There is some tinting on the SmallRig VND, and that is a little bit of magenta. At least I noticed it in the clouds, but you could always fix that if you tried in post-production. I assume that if you really couldn't, then that would be an issue, and perhaps you should, you know, work your way around it. But if you're good with somebody, or you yourself know color grading, I think you'll be okay. However, for a really top-tier professional type of project, I would definitely choose the FSND by Scheider over the SmallRig because of the fact that it also has cross, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a X almost on the image. It looks very rich in the middle and, you know, rich at the top middle, as opposed to the sides where it's sort of a little bit good but not nearly as rich and dense of a color or filtration, in this case you would say, for your image, right? I think that if you enjoy control and flexibility, you're going to prefer the SmallRig VND. Overall, I would choose the SmallRig VND over the Nisi VND because of the fact that Nisi's doesn't tell you what stop you're on. There's a huge green shift in my color when I applied that filter, and I obviously had to do something about it in post-production, so you're not going to notice it too much. But me having that experience of putting it on, I really didn't have that like, oh my god moment, you know, as I kind of had with, for say, the SmallRig VND, even just on a first look basis, just being impressed by how rich those colors were. I really loved the SmallRig VND filter, honestly. If the SmallRig VND was up to 7 stops of light in filtration, I would actually choose the SmallRig VND, and that's because of the fact that it's flexible, the fact that it can work with a matte box, and if you need a matte box, you're probably working on professional high-end productions anyway. The only downside in that case would be the fact that it has the X's on the screen. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's not obviously a physical X you could see, but it's more so the, I guess you could say, outlining of the filtration happening. And in regards to the Nisi, I didn't like it. I'm not going to say anything bad about it because it's still a good product. It's actually great if you really just wanted to go and solo shoot on your own. However, your images would just suffer from a little bit of tinting. And now in regards to working with the Scheider Hollywood Black Magic at a strength of 1, I noticed it much more when I was on the Tokina Vista Prime 50mm doing close-up shots. I really like the blooming effect that it showed on those highlights. It just made it feel so nostalgic. I love it. Now when working with the Tokina 11-20mm lens, I noticed it as well, just not as noticeable and not as exaggerated as it was on the Tokina Vista Prime. If I was working with the wide-angle lens, I would notice it on the fences. With the SmallRig VND filter, however, I want to mention that I was filming on a 17mm focal length, so the angle of it was pretty wide to the point where I started seeing the actual filter itself. So you just need to be careful when working with the SmallRig VND because it is a VND that goes into your matte box. However, it's a circular filter, so if the angle is wide enough, you'll start actually seeing the corners looking like they're vignetting, but it's actually just the filter having reached its limit. As a number 1 choice for filtration, I would go with the Scheider Rhodium FSND at a strength of 2.4. If you enjoyed this video or you found it informative, drop a like, comment down below what type of content you want to see next, and subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss any new content that I got coming out. If you like the long form content, let me know. Prefer bite-sized shorts? Let me know. I could find a way to do all of this in a more compressed version, but then again, I kind of like being very lengthy with the video. It just makes me feel like you enjoy it, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something that matters. Thank you, and have a great day.